Okay, this is warm up / classwork 928. Have you copy all this work, the secret words, and then I'm going to have you try a set on your own, kind of like a quiz. So take those problems serious. So here we go. This one's starting with Lucky Joe. And again, I need you to look at the word problem and see if it's starting with, which is the zero term, or if it says that key first day, which is the first term, f of 1. So again, remember, starts with means right away. That is the zero term. It's starting with that number right there, 4. That is the zero term. That is the y-intercept. The other one is starting with the first term. And how do you know? Because it says first day, or it will say day 1. That is the first term. First word is dog. Dog. So knowing that, this one says triples. Triples is timesing by 3. That makes this geometric, makes this one of these curved eventually graphs. So that means I'm timesing by 3, timesing by 3, timesing by 3. Going to the left, I would be timesing by the reciprocal of 3, timesing by 1/3 if I was going to the left. But going to the right, that first term of course, 4 times 3 gives me 12. That second term, 12 times 3 gives me 36. That third term, 36 times 3. And again, at this point, I'm not going to take a chance. I'm going to use my calculator. Gives me 108. And then at that point, I have everything I need to write all my forms. I could write my recursive form, f of x equals f of x minus 1 times that d number, or I'm sorry, that r number. That is your common ratio. That's your r number, common ratio. Or I could do explicit, use to jump ahead, using that first term, always times that common ratio. Let's do that in green. Raised to the x power. If you're using the first, I'm sorry, the zero term. If you're using the first term there, that 12, you got to make sure you're timesing it times 3 to the x. Take away 1 power. If you're graphing that, sometimes it won't fit on a graph all the way. The main part, you'd have to stretch it out, but we'll just graph what we can. So again, this says triples dollars. So this is triples dollars each minute. So I'm going to have you make sure you label your graph. Otherwise, I don't know what that is. Know that those are coordinates. 0, 4 is where my first point is going to be. Next point, 1, 12. And then I could see at this point, there's not going to be any more points to graph. If I was to go to the left, these points would eventually end up looking like this. And then to the right, they go way up yonder. But again, you could graph what you can given the numbers on the graph that I give you. So again, I would just kind of try to draw it maybe like that. A little arrow showing that that goes up forever, knowing that this graph eventually really looks like that if you were to graph that on Desmos, which we'll be doing one day. All right, next word is cat. Cat. All right, next problem starts with the first day, first term, and then increasing by 5%. Remembering 5% as a decimal, if you take that decimal and move it twice to the right, 5% is the decimal 0.5. And if you're increasing by that 5%, you're really adding that to that 1. So what you're going to be timesing by is the whole plus that little 5%. That means you're going to be timesing by 1.05. That's going to be where I'm getting this common ratio. Timesing by the whole of it, 101 times that little 5% more, 1.05. So that works like this. Second term, 100 times 1.05 on my calculator. Gives me 105. And then I times that by another 1.05 on my calculator. And that gives me, for my third term, 110.25. Going to the left, to that all-important zero term, I'm timesing by the reciprocal of 1.05, which is written as 1 over 1.05, or that's a high-tech way of just showing I'm dividing by 1.05. And again, what am I dividing 1.05 by? This 100 right there. So 100 divided by 1.05 gives me, for this weird one, 95.2, and I'll round it to 2 decimal places, 0.24. Know how to round to 2 decimal places. The next word is pig. Pig. All right, writing these forms. Recursive times that 1.05, increasing by 5%. Explicit, that zero term, times that common ratio number to the x power if I was to use it. And then the first term one, of course, 100 times that same common ratio number. Can't leave it just like that though, but to the x minus 1 power. If I was to graph this, this is days, money per week. So make sure you label that the correct way. And then I'll just graph best I can. So the zero term at 95, again, this does not fit on this graph. So let's just pretend this is 100 right here. And let's change the scale of this graph. Let's make sure it just goes up by 5. So this would be 10, 20, 30. Just in my scale, which I probably should have done for that first graph. First point gives me 0, 95.24. I'll go about halfway. First point 1, 100. Next point 2, 105. Then it goes 3, 110. Knowing that those are the only points we're looking at right here, but knowing that this graph eventually does have that whole curve going to it. But for this, we'll just graph just this little part, looking something like that. All right, what I'm going to have you do is do the same thing. Look and see if it's the starting with zero term or if it's the first day, first term, knowing that these are geometric, always timesing. I'm going to have you do that on your own for this set right here, where I'm giving you 200. And again, those keywords that you need to be able to read and know what that means. Remember, starting with zero term, first day, day 1, first term. I'm going to have you do these, graph them, maybe adjust the scale best you can so you could graph these and make them fit on your graph. Second to last word is goat. Goat. And again, make sure on these you do it by the right label. Label the graphs. Label the graphs. All right, last word is cow. Cow. Good luck. Talk to you in a bit.